What is going on, YouTube? Culturedog Sam Hatch back here with week 4, the final week of my horror festival of trying to watch a horror movie, or at least just a spooky movie or Halloween-centric movie, one for every night of the month of October. I do it every year. Usually nobody cares, but this time it's been a fun thing, coming hot off the heels of my 80s series. There's been a lot of people chatting back and forth about these films, so it's cool. Thanks for leaving some comments and actually watching the videos. And when we last left off, I think I left off at number 23, and it was a really good month. A lot of times, usually my schedule inhibits being able to really keep a steady pace, and sometimes I'll just have to take a break and maybe play some catch up or something. But no, it was a great steady stream of horror product all throughout the month. I had a great time. Puts me in the mood for Halloween, which is great. Apologies for this being a couple days late. My schedule was good, but it was pretty bad for like Halloween proper. Really crowded, and I had a bunch of radio to do and some assignments and things to watch, so I had to go out and hang out with everybody on Halloween, then come home, and then that guy showed up, and then watch some non-Halloween centric stuff to comment on the radio the next day. So it just didn't allow me to get this thing in the can and edit it in time and everything like that. So it's probably Saturday by the time this is uploaded, but who cares, man? It's always Halloween around here, so it's always time to talk about some horror product. Extra credit wise, I did watch a ton of special features. I've been finishing off more Wolfman stuff, some commentary. The commentary on that is pretty interesting. I forgot the name of gonna kill myself. I'm not gonna kill myself, but I mean, I feel bad because I forgot the name of the guy that was doing the commentary. It's funny, he gets pretty salty sometimes. It's definitely a different commentary from the Dracula and Frankenstein ones. But that was, pretty entertaining, and I watched all the special features on there, on the Universal disc from my 8-disc box set that I keep talking about every week. So I was binging on those, and I did keep up with Creepshow. I still haven't seen the newest one with the Tom Savini directed episode based on the Joe Hill story, but I did watch the 5th episode from the week prior, which was pretty darn entertaining. The monkey's paw variant was a really good one, and it kind of captured a lot of the Creepshow vibe in terms of, the storytelling aspect. Kind of made me flash back to the Crate a little bit there, and a lot of the usage of the comic, iconography. And the last story in there was a really good one, but I think it relied on the comic panels too much. It seemed like it either had too much story to cram into such a small segment, and it was just kind of using the comic homage as a crutch. There really was a lot of stuff that they just kind of told you fast with pictures that they really should have filmed and shown. So yeah, maybe that was just too complex a story. I mean, it's just basically a switcheroo kind of, the bad people get what's coming to them, revenge type situation. But I probably could have used a little bit more in terms of setup. But that said, it was a really entertaining episode. So yeah, I like that one a lot. I'm looking forward to watching episode 6. And then I jumped right back into Nosferatu. I mentioned I watched the first episode or two last week, and I got all the way up to episode 7. So I think I have 3 left. And it's been pretty entertaining so far. And I was actually surprised that they actually showed some of the things they showed. I figured, this is going to be something that a character is just going to talk about a lot. But no, some actual stuff has been happening. And it's moved on beyond Ashley Cummings riding her motorbike from one, I'm going to my dad's, I'm going to my mom's, I'm going back to my dad's, I'm going back to my mom's. That stuff finally kind of started sliding away, and we started doing a little bit more. So but it's been good. I was sad to find out that Mike Patton only did the theme and the first episode. I guess supposedly scheduling caused him to not score the whole series. So I was all excited. Mike Patton's doing the music, and then I realized quickly he didn't get to do any of the other episodes. But it's been pretty bingeable, and so I should be done with that within the next few days. So I did all that stuff, and then I jumped back in with film number 24 on the list, which is Eli Roth's Cabin Fever. Which is funny because when it came out, it was kind of like a hot ticket, and it was always on cable. It was always on Sci-Fi, and everyone was talking about it, and certainly put Eli Roth's career on the map, and paved the way for Hostel, which I adored, and I still love that film, and I don't mind the sequel either. But yeah, it's funny, nobody really talks about Cabin Fever anymore. It's I don't know, maybe it was just a moment of its time, but bro comedy horror film with a bunch of people having a vacation in a cabin in the woods, which is horror film trope city. But what I really appreciated about the film is that it broke free from the usual parasite or viral outbreak in this one location. There's even been like cabin outbreak kind of episodes. There was an X-Files episode that was very, very similar with a flesh-eating bacteria kind of thing. And a lot of that stuff is an excuse to keep things really low budget and keep things on one location. And the coolest thing about Cabin Fever was that it just broke free. And like, even though they had the cabin out there in the woods and the locale right around it, they ran off and did all sorts of adventures and went to other houses nearby and dropped in other characters. And I know some people talk about some of the comedy being a little bit of a groaner now, but that said, Pancakes, man, that gets me every time. I still love the absurdity of some of the moments in the film, and I still think it's pretty cool. So and I watched the DVD. I got that old DVD that I think I got from Suncoast for $10 with the lenticular cover there, so I had to fire that up. So number 24, Cabin Fever. Number 25, one of the things I was most psyched about this go round was visiting a couple films that I'd always wanted to see and I'd been hearing about forever. And one of them was David Cronenberg's Rabid. I had heard tales of the early Cronenberg, but for me, like Cronenberg, I never got to experience anything pre The Brood. But I would read about it. I mean, I loved Cronenberg, that book. So I loved reading about this stuff and just hearing about him coming up in the Canadian filmmaking circuit and how people were outraged by him using Canadian funds to finance these films, and the fact that Ivan Reitman was involved in them. But they always just eluded me. And I struck when I saw Rabid, the Scream Factory issue on sale at Best Buy, back when Best Buy would sell those kind of things. Now it's just like one wall of Marvel movies and one wall of 4K titles, and like that's about it. And I've gotten lucky. Apparently some places have even less. But so I had to check it out. I was struck by how good Marilyn Chambers was in the film. That was something I wasn't expecting. And it's got a lot of the prime Cronenberg, I wouldn't even call them tropes, but just the outlandishness and the kind of futurist. He took 70s like modernist / futurist architecture, and especially in North America that stuff was everywhere, and Canada had tons of it. And low budget horror and sci-fi movies really made the most out of it, and he certainly always had all these interesting clinics and things like that in his film. And this one had a plastic surgery clinic in it, and it's so outlandish. Just starts off with this crazy motorcycle accident and these people being dragged to this plastic surgery clinic, and utter weirdness. And from that point on, it's it got a little bit of vampirism in it, but not as you've seen it before. It's got some interesting underarm phalluses that are thirsty for blood. Totally normal, that sort of thing. Seen it all before. And then that leads to a kind of zombie-ish outbreak story, and so it's dealing with things that other films have dealt with, but in such a weird Cronenberg body horror fashion. And I loved it. And the skin graft scene, man, that's still it's like, I don't know, medical horror is always scarier than someone getting stabbed in the face. It's always the blood from The Exorcist when they're doing the MRI. You're just squirting out of Reagan, and that skin graft thing from Rabid. Ugh. But it looked fantastic, sounded pretty good, and I had a great time watching it and dug into all the special features and everything too, of course. So Rabid, number 25. Number 26, I had to go old school. I had to do Night of the Living Dead, and normally I still use my old Elite, I think the Millennium Edition DVD, but since I ponied up for the Criterion Collection last year during one of those Barnes & Noble sales, I figured I'd finally get a chance to watch that, and also sat in with all the special features on there, the Night of Anubis work print cut, and yeah, it did look very nice on Blu-ray, and some of the patterns on the clothing and everything. It's an alert level of detail I hadn't seen. And I grew up with Night of the Living Dead being a public domain cheapie. So many Good Times video cassettes and things like that for $1 at supermarkets, and yeah, the print quality was usually ass. And yeah, so it was nice seeing it in a solid presentation. And obviously I enjoyed seeing some of the elite releases before this, but the Criterion was rather nice. And especially watching all the documentaries earlier on in the month, it was cool being able to sit down and finally firing up Night of the Living Dead properly. 27. I say finally a lot because I'm finally seeing things, but I finally got around to checking out Overlord. A film that was very much on my radar when it was coming out in cinemas. I didn't get a chance to catch it. And then by the time everybody saw it, they're like, it was okay. And it ended up being pretty much exactly what I thought it was going to be and what I was going to pony up some dough to go see. So I was fully entertained by Overlord. It was a lot of fun. A lot of actors you don't get to see that often, and except for the man who killed Jaime Lannister is in there as a great villain. But it was part mission movie, World War II throwback film. I love just from the opening graphics and the opening scenes as they're flying into their mission and all hell breaks loose in the skies. Great stuff, and the mission aspect of it was really fun. You could say it plays like a video game, like any kind of like zombie or whatever variant on World War II mission games. But the characters were just, I don't know, surprisingly gripping, and even the ones that were just like character tropes were still, lovable at least, or watchable, or I don't know. I just really found myself engaged with these characters, and made watching the film a sheer delight. And when it does get weird in the Nazi camp where they're doing experiments, and you learn about what's going on behind closed doors, and this whole kind of other aspect that should derail or could possibly derail the mission. It was great. Lots of nasty horror stuff going on in there, and just a lot of fun, man. I dug the crap out of Overlord. So that was it. Number 27. Overlord. Number 28, another one I'd been meaning to watch for a while because I'd seen the original short film, and I can dig some Tim Burton, so I sat around and watched Frankenweenie. Sadly, I didn't watch the little bonus little featurette or the short film that came with it, but I'll have to check that out too. I totally forgot that was on the Blu-ray. But yeah, Frankenweenie was pretty much what I thought it was going to be. Entertaining, not like Tim Burton at the top of his game, because he hasn't been at the top of his game for quite some time, but it was totally watchable, and it was cool that he repurposed some of his character designs from Family Dog, because I was a big fan of Family Dog, especially the original Amazing Stories piece that Brad Bird directed. And he pretty much stole the Family Dog character that he drew and put it in stop motion form for Sparky the dog in here. It was a little kind of weird, Tim Burton characters haven't really kind of connected with me in a lot of his movies, and this one had a lot of side characters that were. You could see why the main character is a bit of a loner, because everyone is a dick in his life, pretty much. So it would have been cool if the Edgar character was actually more of like an Igor or a Fritz character that was like a friend of his and involved in his antics, but. It was visually interesting, and the Blu-ray was great, but not a Nightmare Before Christmas topper or anything like that, even though that was Henry Selick. But it was delightful enough, and some of the turns and things they added that weren't in the original story were pretty entertaining. So Frankenweenie, number 28. Number 29. I know I've been putting documentaries in this list, so I guess that's kind of cheating, but still they're horror-based documentaries. So I finally got around to checking out Memory, The Origins of Alien, which is a documentary from the same people that put together the documentary about the shower scene from Psycho. And Memory is, on one hand, you can say, well, it's really not needed for an alien documentary, since Charlie de Lauzirika's documentary from the videos that were from the quadrilogy on DVD, and then later the Blu-rays and everything. That exhaustive documentary is pretty like encompassing and has just about everybody involved in it that you would want to hear from. But there are some things in memory that weren't brought to the table before. I guess if I could, not slam it, but complain about anything, was that it seems a little like it wants to be like 3 different documentaries, which is weird because I read the piece on like RogerEbert.com saying about how it was the most masterfully composed documentary ever, and it made these like strong thesis statements in the beginning and completely wrapped them up, and I found it to be a little more meandering than that. It is a really entertaining tale of Dan O'Bannon and his coming up and dealing with Dark Star, and also Jodorowsky's Dune, which I can never stop hearing about that. I always want to hear about that. And then the seeds of him writing Alien. So it seems to be focusing heavily on that. It's also focusing on interpretations of Alien in terms of like almost like a collective unconscious. So we have like a genetic memory of these myths, and especially focusing on Greek origins of the Furies, etc. And in fact, it started on a wrong foot with this weird little piece. It was a little kind of, I don't know, it was explaining the Furies in an Alien-esque fashion, kind of mashing up the two, but it wasn't letting you know that this was a documentary. I was like, oh my god, did I just like put on some fanfic or something? Like, what's going on here? I thought this, even my wife was like, I thought you said this was a documentary. So it was kind of weird, and especially because it's like, it says 1979, because it's trying to connect the release of Alien to these Greek myths. And I'm like, well, yeah, but we're clearly watching HD footage that you knuckleheads shot like 6 months ago. So none of this is actually from 1979. So yeah, like that could have gone out the window. So thankfully, we saw the creepy Furies and like with the alien laser fog effect from the derelict spacecraft. But then it gets into the actual documentary part, and then so it's dealing with a lot of some bits of feminism, some bits of Greek mythology, a lot dealing with art, especially some the inspiration of a Francis Bacon painting on Ridley Scott, and then on Giger, and etc. And so there's a lot of stuff about Giger as well. And then it gets into a bit where it focuses almost entirely. So this makes sense knowing now that it's the guy that was focusing on the shower scene in Alien Psycho, that it pretty much centers around the chestburster scene from that point on. But I don't know. It seemed a little disconnected. Like you could have either made a documentary on any one of those things. And it was a little too professorial for my wife in a couple bits where the talking heads were going on about, the interpretations of the film and, its connection to human history and myth. And so it got a little heady at times, but it was still entertaining though. And it's always interesting seeing some new footage occasionally. And there was a lot of talk about filming the scene of the chestburster, and that was always fascinating. But obviously Veronica Cartwright is doing some talking, Tom Skerritt's doing some talking, but no Sigourney Weaver, no David Giler. So there's people missing. There's some story missing, and of course they just mined a lot of the older documentary stuff for footage of Ridley Scott talking, and obviously Giger talking. And then so it seemed to drop a few balls. Like it gets really into the gender of the film and never mentions that the ship's computer is named Mother. Like, how do you not mention that? Or maybe I blinked and missed that part. There was like a couple other things where it's like, wow, that's weird that they kind of dropped the ball on that. And sadly they never. I was just talking with someone on the comments below about how the film is, Ridley Scott always said it was a haunted house film, and it really never comments on or talks about the haunted house portion of the film. It mentions that the film gets claustrophobic once the alien is free, but I don't know, it doesn't really dig into that. So it was obviously, I'll watch any of this stuff like over and over and over again, but it was a little bit of a disappointment considering how much it was hyped up and everything. So not my all-time favorite documentary, but it's worth checking out, especially if you're a big Alien fan. So there you go. Memory. Number 30, another one that had been sitting on my shelf for a long time. I got the old Blue Underground DVD of Umberto Lenzi's Nightmare City. And damn, that was a lot of fun. It's a zombie outbreak. It's great because it's like, the Umberto Lenzi goes to so many pains to let you know that it's not, a Romero zombie film or a Fulci zombie film. It's like, yeah, but it's like, especially having watched Night of the Living Dead pretty close in proximity to this. It's like, well, it's like, they're zombies, but, they're because of radiation. I'm like, all right, well, so were the zombies in Romero. And it's like, and they're zombies, but they can use tools and things like that. And it's like, well, yeah, but I saw them using tools in Night of the Living Dead too, or at least, holding things. And I'm like, yeah, but anyways, it's this kind of fever dream, in the best Italian horror film fashion, with Hugo Stiglitz as this reporter going to meet this personality that is infected, and everybody else on the plane that lands with him, they're also infected, and it's kind of like it's like a mix of traditional zombie viruses with like the rage virus, that sort of thing. They'll pick up machine guns and shoot you. They're very violent, and not super fast, but fast-ish and fast enough. And it goes through a bunch of different set pieces and locations as he's trying to find his wife, and there's a couple side characters that are trying to keep their family safe. There's some random moments of like WTF, like one character is been told that there something's going on, stay inside the house, don't let anybody in, and she goes upstairs and sees a sculpture she had worked on with like a bloody knife stuck in it, and she's like, yeah. And then like the next scene, like you see her back to sculpting. Like clearly somebody was in your house stabbing your crap with a knife that's covered in blood. Like someone's in your house. Like you might want to look into that. There's some other weird gaps in the logic that strain your belief, but I don't know, it was fun. It moved, man. It was like, it's funny reading some of the reviews of it from back in the day. Everyone's saying about how leaden it was and boring. It was absolutely not boring or leaden. It just keeps going from one cool, exciting thing to the other next cool, exciting thing. And some of the effects are better than others. There was a lot of cornflake-headed looking dudes, but some of the stuff was pretty effective. I had a lot of fun with Nightmare City, so that was cool. Number 31, I fired up the Severin Blu-ray, which I adore, and picked it up at Retro World, actually the previous year, and from the archive. And shout outs to those guys, the Vinegar Syndrome crew and the archive. But yeah, I figured I would watch The Devil's Reign again, because that was one of the movies that was just made such a mark on me on my childhood, because it was always on TV back in the day. And just that classic time, 60s and 70s, where occultism and Satanism was so prevalent in popular culture. And just the fact that it's funny because Tom Skerritt in the special features is complaining about how the producers wouldn't let him go camp with it. And so the most remarkable thing about the film is it just takes itself so seriously. And again, another fever dream. It's just so outlandish. It starts like it's almost like it's night 2 of a mini series. Like it starts with all this weird stuff going on with these characters you don't know, in the middle of experiencing all this dramatic stuff that you don't know about, totally out there. It's so great. It's like one of those movies that like you think about later and you're like, did I imagine half of that? And so I love The Devil's Reign, and it's got Tom Skerritt again in there, and William Shatner and Ernest Borgnine crushing it, Ida Lupino, and John Travolta in a little part there. So special features were great too. Church of Satan members in there. Then the bit with the script continuity girl was pretty fascinating, and an awesome tale of making it in Hollywood by accident. That was cool, and some vintage interview stuff with William Shatner was great. It just looks so gorgeous. The color palette is amazing. I mean, a lot of it's like a kind of Western in this old desolate town, but so very dusty and everything. But the world of the Satanists inside their church and everything is so vivid and bright, and the colors are fantastic. And yeah, man, you get to see Ernest Borgnine turn into a goat dude. So yeah, Devil's Reign, man, that's right up my alley. I love that flick. Then I followed that up with Trick or Treat. So I guess I can't count that as 32, but I'm going to anyways, because I watched it again earlier in the month, but we were over for a visit with friends, and they had never seen Trick or Treat, so fired it up again. So yeah, and that's a movie that just never gets old watching it. So it was cool watching it with new people, and it seems more and more people are discovering this movie and, of course, realizing that, oh, this is like a good perennial. This is something to watch every Halloween season. So, yeah, why not watch Trick or Treat again? So we did that, and then the final movie, which I guess would be 33, I was psyched to get Shivers. I never, again, like Rabid, never seen it, read so much about it. So I actually ponied up for the Arrow video release that was repressed. Apparently there was a cut version that was released accidentally. Arrow repressed it, and they repressed it region free. So it was on sale from Amazon UK, and I got it. I ponied up for the really fast shipping, and I got it within a couple days. I actually had to chase down the DHL guy on Halloween night to get my copy, because he's like, yeah, I'm not coming back there. And I'm like, dude, where are you? I'll meet you. I want my Shivers Blu-ray. So yeah, it was kind of cool wrapping up the night after watching other movies, coming home, having to do some stuff on assignment, and then popping on Shivers and seeing some vintage Cronenberg. Yeah, it's fun. I just love how it's so futuristic, and again, using those interesting Canadian locales. And of course, it's got that, viral sexual outbreak in an apartment complex, but it's like a very kind of futuristic, self-contained Wonder World apartment complex. Of course, reminded me of other films like Demons 2 and even Land of the Dead, etc. Yeah, man, I was so psyched to have this. And I got to watch all the special features tonight because I just watched the film proper last night. But it was definitely worth the wait, and I'm psyched to get the Arrow release for pretty cheap, and it actually showed up in time for Halloween. So that was it, number 33, Shivers. So yeah, let me know what you guys watch below, and thanks for hanging out through this whole series. And we'll be back with more Laserdisc, Blu-rays, what have you, all sorts of stuff. Cheers, everyone.